Red arrows flying over London. These are live pictures coming to you now as the squadron flies over, we think, Buckingham Palace in central London. This is the salute marking today's special holiday and the commemoration 75 years since the war in Europe ended. Yeah, I think that was HMS Belfast there. So.
Amazing, flying up the Thames.
And also today there will be typhoon flyovers in Edinburgh, in Belfast as well, and somewhere else where I can't remember, but there will be Cardiff, yeah, going to be.
Look at that. There's Trafalgar Square, Nelson's Column. There they go. I would head up to Buckingham Palace from there. And there they are, the red, white and blue in their wake over London.
Very good. I think it's going to be a few Spitfire and Bomber Command sort of flights as well as the whole commemoration of that 75 years happens.
When you think there would have been so many people out today, I mean, such a beautiful day, you know, there would have been all those VE Day celebrations planned, and it's so sad, I think, particularly for the veterans. You know, the numbers are dwindling and they would have been there with some of their comrades. But I know a lot of you are trying to celebrate at home. You've been sending us pictures of you decorating your houses. So keep those coming, because we love to hear from you. And I hope you enjoyed the day. And as we said, we're commemorating 75 years since the Second World War in Europe formally ended.
Someone who took part in those celebrations in 1945 is our next guest, and she is Lotte Moore.
Yeah, and Lotte was just 9 years old on VE Day. She's still celebrating 75 years later.
Look at her, look at her.
In full.
Morning, Lotte, looking good.
You look great, Lotte. Good morning. And do you always celebrate VE Day?
Yes, yeah, but not quite as much as this one, which is very exciting.
It's an amazing landmark. Now, listen, first of all, where were you on this day? What do you remember about this day 75 years ago?
But I remember, first of all, I suddenly saw my dad coming through the gate just before this day, and he had his jersey on and his trousers, and I knew then that he wasn't in the RAF anymore and it was the end of the war, and I rushed up and hugged him. But this actual day, suddenly all the street lights went on, all the church bells were ringing, and everybody started singing and dancing, and it was breakfast time. And my mother, she wrapped a Union Jack round her and jumped on a lorry and went racing down the village on a lorry with all the other mums. Help, Mum! Help, I said, and she didn't come back for ages. It was a wonderful day, and everybody was so happy and singing. Wonderful.
Wonderful. Lotte, a lot of people are stressed, a lot of people are anxious, a lot of people are suffering, and they've lost people who are close to them throughout this awful coronavirus outbreak. And it's tough and it's hard for people. You've lived through both of these situations, and a lot of people make comparisons. What comparison would you make between the two situations, or what would you like to say to people who are experiencing what they're experiencing today?
Well, I'm going to quickly read you this poem because it's about contact. Slow and fearful is the pace. We have slowed down the human race. Let's stop all talking machines for a day to hear our innermost dreams. A total time where you pause and wait, listen to each other and communicate. Talk and be brave and think out loud. Share yourself and do not be proud. And the main thing is to talk to a lot of people how you're feeling and not keep it to yourself, because it's very lonely. Even though I've got a lovely husband here, it's incredibly lonely being shut off and isolated. Even worse for those poor people completely alone. And the thing is, we never know when it's going to end. With the war, we were frightened of Hitler, but this is an insidious, silent killer, and we are all frightened of it. And I've got my husband on a lead because I can't bear the thought of him going out and coming back with it. So I'm very strict with him. He's not going out at all for a bit.
And also, Lotte, a lot of people are talking about community spirit that we're seeing now, and people talk a lot about the community spirit during wartime. Have you noticed a remarkable difference now, how people are looking out for each other, and how important do you think that is?
I think it's incredibly important, but I must say that during the war, in the terrace I live in, everybody came out of their doors and helped each other. I think it's slightly more dividends this year so far, but we are having, for instance, a singing evening just with waving flags on our doorsteps tonight. And so that is lovely. And all the people I haven't seen very much are all going to come out on a doorstep. And so we'll see each other, which is lovely. But people very much keeping to themselves because nobody wants to catch it. That's what's so sad. And most of all, I miss children who I teach being able to hug you and touch you. That is what's so terrible.
Your wartime experiences and one, of course, as an author, you've put into book form. But could you share with people, we've talked about hearing about the Second World War ending, or the war in Europe ending. When did you first hear, when were you aware that we were at war?
Oh, it was terrifying. I was in Essex and I looked out of the window and there was barrage balloons hanging in our garden. And I screamed to my dad. I said, "Dad, what are those things?" And he put his arm around me and he said, "Darling, I'm very sorry. You've got to go away because of the war." I said, "What is war, Dad? What is it?" And I was sent away to Herefordshire for 2 whole years. I didn't see my parents for 2 years. No letter, no, nothing. I didn't hear from them. I was incredibly homesick, like many, many children. It was terrifying. And none of us understood what that word meant till I came to London one day with Granny because I had measles. And suddenly it was pitch dark. And I saw a fire and I said, "Oh, look, Gran, there's a bonfire." And she pulled me back and she said, "That's not a fire. That's a house which is burnt down where people have died." And then I realised what war was about.
And how's that affected you over the years, Lotte? You're 4 years old and being sent away for your own safety, of course, and then having no contact at all. You were talking there how we're all keeping in contact, we all have social media and technology now, but for you to not see your parents or family for 2 years, that must have been very, very difficult.
It was. And just when we moved to Kent, we had a huge garden with a cave underneath, which was the air raid shelter. And the whole village came in there when the air raid sirens went, which were terrifying. And one day a lady screamed out, "My house has gone, my husband." And a little boy beside me said, "What's a husband?" I said, "It's a daddy." And he said, "Oh, I haven't got one of those." And again, suddenly you realise how lucky I was that I had a daddy, so I thought. But when we came home, I didn't really know what to do because I didn't rush up and hug my daddy. And in the corner, in a chair, was a creature. And I said, "Who's that?" And it was my little sister, Tessa, who'd been born with jam all over her face. And I said, "Oh," and I didn't even know I got a sister at all. Yeah. But it was very hard getting back to feeling safe with your parents. You felt terribly insecure and very rejected.
Final question, Lotte. You met Winston Churchill. What sort of aura had that man got, or what was your impression of the man who led us through to victory in the Second World War?
That wonderful man. Firstly, my grandfather lived in this terrace, and he was an MP and used to go down and see Churchill every week in his little boat. But we were in the country, and one day we knew them quite well, and one day we went swimming. And my brother loved swimming underwater, and Churchill was in the swimming pool, lying peacefully until we got there. And suddenly Jeremy dived underneath him and turned him over. And he went like this, and my mother screamed out, "Don't drown the Prime Minister." And my little brother said, "Who's that, Mum?" And she was livid, and when we got home, he got a smack bottom. But he was a very kind man, and I just think his last speech, which I've been reading today, is just incredible. What a man to have just given us our freedom. Just imagine if we'd been invaded and Hitler was looking after us now. I just think about him very, very often. Marvellous man.
Well, that's a great thought on which to end. Yeah. Lotte, thank you very much indeed for that insight. Lotte Moore there celebrated VE Day when she was 9 years of age.
Thank you. Enjoy your celebrations
Thank you, and thanks
today.
for your time today. Thank you.